In general, Dota players are not very good at predicting a win. That's why most of the games in my potato bracket go up to an hour in length. But what everyone who has played this game long enough is good at is predicting a loss. Oof, I died 3 times in lane. Good game, we lost. My Pudge missed his hook. Ugh, useless. GG, we lost. All chat report Pudge. Oh, my carry missed the last hit. GG, we lost. My teammate has positive mental attitude as a nickname. GG, we lost. While playing with this negative mentality is really bad for you and your team, I can see where it comes from. Dota is a game of mistakes. I mean, I play every game perfectly, but somehow my win rate is still 50%. So what's the problem? Well, one of the areas in which a game can actually be lost from the start is if you buy the wrong starting items. If you start off with a bad build, you will lose the lane, and likely the game. So here's how not to do that. I'm the Seer, and this is the Noob's Guide to Dota 2. As we said before, when the game starts, you have a small amount of gold available, and you can use that money to buy cheap items from the list here to help you in lane. Unfortunately for me, the numbers behind these items keep getting changed, and new options are constantly being added with every patch, so anything specific I say will immediately date this video. So what I'll do instead is give you an idea of the general logic involved behind your item choices, and why something works or not. Supports. Supports need to buy wards. But wards are a free item, you might say. And while that is true, carry players are so disgusted by support items that they won't touch them even if it costs them the game. Furthermore, as a support player, you spend less time hitting creeps and more time walking around, so it makes sense that you carry the wards. Not just observer wards, but also sentry wards. Sentry wards are usually picked against invisible heroes like Reiki to counter them, yet there is a much more valuable usage to them, and that is dewarding enemy observers. If you kill an enemy ward, you gain a frankly broken amount of gold and XP, so finding and killing a ward in your lane at the start can be lane winning. Okay, got it. So as a support, always start with sentry wards. And no. Here's the problem with that. You can't be sure that the enemy team has even bothered to buy and place wards. Certainly in your first games, warding simply does not exist as a concept. So that means that by buying a sentry ward to start, you are at a disadvantage compared to the enemy support who bought an extra tango. So what you should do instead is start your game without a sentry, then check the inventory of the enemies in lane. If you see an observer, instantly buy a sentry and deliver it to you with the courier. Then, periodically check the same hero's inventory to see when the ward is gone, and that means that they placed it somewhere nearby. Then, it should be easy to figure out where they put it down and deward it. Next, regeneration. There are slight differences depending on your role and your hero. Support should always be in the face of the enemy heroes, spamming spells to push them out of the lane. As such, it makes sense to carry a ton of mana regeneration. As a second priority, it is a good idea to carry more health regen than you need for yourself, so you can give the extra bit to your carry, and then they can stay in lane as well. Every 60 seconds in Dota, another carry walks up to the creeps without regen. Together, we can stop this. Just carry an extra set of tangos and healing salve and share them with your carry. To share items, control left click them in your inventory, then click your allied hero. You can also do this with wards, clarities, and the enchanted mango item. Speaking of that, there are 2 consumables that give you burst regeneration, Mango and Fairy Fire. Mango gives you burst mana and a passive health regen, whereas Fairy Fire gives burst health and a passive +2 damage. Burst regeneration is very valuable in the laning stage, as you can turn the tide in a fight with an extra spell or a little more health. The downside is that it costs more than the slower, larger total regen from healing salve or clarity. Another thing to consider is your hero and what you're up against. If you are a melee hero playing against a ranged support, you will get your salves and clarities cancelled with their attacks, so you may be forced to buy mangoes over clarities. Supports going up against the hard carry can vary their build slightly by opting for items that increase their kill potential, Blightstone and Orb of Venom. Both items apply an on-hit effect to your attacks. The first item reduces armor, so it's very good on heroes with high attack damage or physical damage spells. Orb of Venom, on the other hand, applies a slow effect on your attacks. 15% if the carrier is melee and 4% if ranged. The downside of both is that they are very expensive, and buying them means you won't have enough regeneration. Where this trade works out well is when you have a situation where you can attack without repercussion. As such, it's best to go for this build on the hard lane support. If you buy this item on a position 5, you'll risk being out of health items to sustain yourself after trading hits with the enemy. Also, please don't buy Orb of Venom or ranged support. I know it can work, but it's just dumb. So to recap for supports, highest priority is mana regen, followed by health regen. Stock up on more than you need for yourself to support your lane's carry, or opt for a Blightstone or Orb of Venom if you think you can use it to win the lane. Mid lane. Mid laners care about 3 things: stats, stats, and stats. In the mid lane, your absolute highest priority is to win the last hit battle. To do this, you need the highest attack damage possible, and you can do that by buying stat items. Buying stat items will also raise your resistance to enemy damage as well. The most cost-effective item in Dota 2 is the Iron Branch. For 50 gold, you gain +1 to all attributes. You can also use its active to plant a tree, which lasts for 20 seconds, and eating this tree with a tango gives you double the regen. Alternatively, you can opt for one of the 3 early stat items: Gauntlets of Strength, Slivers of Agility, and Mantle of Intelligence. These are good starting items for Strength, Agility, and Intelligence carries respectively. They also build into Bracer, Wraithband, and Null Talisman, which offer even more stats and passive bonuses. Okay, so why not just start with Null Talisman then? It's right there in the common items. You totally can, but it's inefficient, and here's why. The item build includes a recipe. Recipes are item build components that offer no bonuses but cost gold, meant to decrease the cost efficiency of an item, meaning that if you opt for an upgraded item to start, you are effectively losing a bit of gold in the process, which could be used towards a set of Iron Branches for a higher total stat boost. So instead, start with the components of the Null Talisman, then buy the recipe later with some last hit gold in lane. What about regeneration? You will see a lot of mid laners start with almost none, then get tangos pooled to them by the supports. You can even do this before the game starts by clicking on the little arrow here and share tangos and wards with your team. Most mid laners ask for 2 tango charges and a ward. This is a good idea if the mid laner then uses that extra money to max those stat item purchases. Of course, this money is only enough to get you ahead at the start. If you miss 5 last hits in a row, it won't matter much. Also for mid laners, Fairy Fire is a very popular item to give you an edge in a 1v1 duel. Hard carry. Melee hard carries swear by one god item, the Quelling Blade. Melee heroes carrying this item deal bonus damage versus creeps. Finally now, my carry can last hit. If you are playing a melee core, this item is an absolute must. Even if your hero is crazy high damage, why not add a bit more? Ranged hard carries don't get as good a bonus from QB, so they almost never pick it up. Instead, the recommended build is usually a lighter version of the mid build, now with 50% more HP regen. Carries just want to have farm, and to do this, all you need is tangos to top your health off every now and then. Slight modification to this rule is if you are facing a very aggressive support like Skywrath Mage, where you might also want to pack a healing salve. Regarding mana regen, you're generally not expected to spam abilities as a carry. You will use them only once or twice to secure a kill. If you're playing a very mana intensive carry and you absolutely need mana regen, you have to go for mangoes, as you always want to be standing by the creeps and enemy supports can take off with clarity. Offlane. Offlane builds are heavy on health regen, especially on melee heroes who will always be in range of support auto attacks. 1 tango and 1 salve are the absolute minimum, and you can bump that up to 2 tangos most of the time. QB if you're melee, stat items if you're ranged. Much like the hard lane support, if your hero has kill potential early on, you can start with a Blightstone to deal big damage against enemy supports. Alternatively, to help protect yourself from right clicks, you can opt for a Ring of Protection that gives you +2 armor. Situational items. I'm now going to cover the remaining common items marked as starting. Smoke of Deceit. As a starting item, this is useful for the soft support for an early gank on the mid lane. Against a mid who is very weak early on like Storm Spirit or Invoker, this might be game winning, but you have to coordinate with your team's mid hero. Dust. Not a good starting item. Sentries are far better for pushing out invisible cores. You want to have a long-term solution in lane. Dust can give you 1 kill only. It's also visible in your inventory, so a smart assassin will see it and not overextend. Magic Stick. This is probably one of the best early game items in the game, but as a starting item, it's a bit weak, as it gives 0 stats. I prefer to buy it a bit later. Exception to this rule is if you are playing against a spammy dual lane like Phantom Assassin Lion or Skywrath Mage Bristleback. As they spam their actives level 1, you will gain a ton of charges, which you can then pop to get your health lost right back. Windlace. A situational pickup on a melee hero who absolutely needs to catch up on enemies to kill them. Prime example I can think of is Pudge. Starting with Sage's Mask or Ring of Regen. No. The passive regen on these items looks cool, but it isn't as cost effective as the good old Tangos and Clarities. Boost of Speed. Optional pickup for supports who want to roam and gank other lanes at the very start of a game. Big downside is it costs nearly all your starting gold, so you will not have enough regen. Gloves of Haste, Crown, Blades of Attack. No. Just no. Finally, the 3 aura items. Ring of Basilius, Buckler, Headdress. These give aura bonuses of mana regen, armor, and HP regen. As the item buildup contains recipes, I don't think they are cost effective. I will say, however, that if you have a very strong dual lane combo, and you will be staying with your lane partner for a long time, they can get the benefit from these items, and it makes them at least a bit worthwhile. As a final note, starting item builds are largely dependent on playstyle as well. Following what a pro player buys at the start doesn't mean that much if you don't play to the strengths of that build. The recommended guides section at the strategy screen is a good starting point, But now is the time you should start tweaking that build to adapt to certain enemies and experimenting with something new to see if you can improve. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.